And we are back with another episode of From the Rafters. Sam and I are here recording on Thursday, March 24th. And the Celtics are good. The good Celtics have officially outweighed the bad Celtics in terms of games played. Um, and the bad Celtics were a 500 team. And in the grand scheme of the NBA, that's like it's bad for the Celtics, but it's an average team. And when you combine that with the ridiculous, like above expectation Celtics that's been the second half of the year, they're 1.5 games out of first place, tied with the Milwaukee Bucks and the 76ers, I believe, who are all 1.5 games out. Actually, I think they're tied for third. Milwaukee's 1 game back.
No. It's all three. Milwaukee, by the time people are listening to this, so it's Thursday afternoon, Milwaukee will play Washington tonight, and
You're right.
they're heavy favorites. So by the time you listen to this, they very well could be
Probably,
above or
yeah.
below. You know, you never know. Maybe that man
True.
Porzingis pours in a bunch of points tonight, right? Battle
You never
of
know.
the Europeans, him and Giannis.
But regardless, Celtics have a serious shot at first place, second place, third place in the Eastern Conference, which if you had told me in February or in January, I would have laughed at you, and I'm sure Sam would have laughed at you as well. It's kind of crazy the turnaround they've gone on. That's not news to anybody. Me saying that isn't like some, a revelation. Sorry. It's just like, I don't even know what to say anymore. I was telling Sam before the show, like, I don't even know what to talk about today because they've just been that dominant. Like, it's tough to find topics, and obviously we have some stuff like it planned to talk about later, but like they're so good that it's tough for me to find things to like discuss because they're just dominating teams. It's not close. They just took down the Jazz with the best offense in the NBA. They've won their last 5 games by something like a combined 20 points, 20 points a game. They just took down the Nuggets. They took down the Warriors. They dominated both of those teams, and they sprinkled in wins over the Thunder and Kings in there too. Took care of business. I don't like. They're just the best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah. And for those listening that don't do their own show, it is very difficult to do shows when they do well, because when they're bad, we can just say, we don't even need to have anything, planned out. We just come in and say, we're angry. This guy sucks. That guy sucks. This is the problem. This is the problem. Now they're winning, and it's great. I mean, and that's really, there's not so much to say about it. It's fantastic. And there's really not a lot more they can do right now than just keep smashing teams. And that's what they're doing. I mean, if you really want to get into it, it seems like they're getting even better. Like they have been great since, mid-January, but really, like, okay, they were great that month. They won a bunch of games. Then they only lost once or twice in February. And now they've only lost once in March. But the wins are getting more dominant. Like you said, they're dominating these teams. And by that, we mean like they're not even letting these games get close after they blow them open.
And they're good teams. Like the Jazz are a really good team.
No. They're like earlier this year, we would do these shows or the pre-games, and Jack was more optimistic than I was at first, just because I love to get optimistic about this team. And early in the season, they started slow, and then they went like 8-3 or something. And I was like, all right, they figured it out. And then they hadn't. And I was like, I'm not going to be fooled again. So I kept saying, okay, yeah, you're beating these teams, pass an exam. There was a stretch where they played well, and then they dropped a game to Charlotte, who at the time was above them, I think, in the standings. So I was like, all right, you got to beat these teams that are above you in the standings. Okay, now they're just smashing everybody. Like even like Golden State, Curry went down. So that is the little caveat to that win. Sacramento bombs.
They were dominating before
they were out ahead of that game before Curry went down. The only thing that kind of makes it different to me is that, I mean, the Warriors did kind of battle back in that game, and they didn't have Curry. So he could have helped their charge back. But besides that, okay, Denver, they go in there, they blow them out. It really doesn't get close again. OKC, they blow them out for the most of the time, but then they start screwing around because it's OKC. Utah, they went up 10 early, and I don't know if it ever got back to single digits. Like in the first quarter, in the first 6 minutes before they missed a shot, they were up 10. And typically when a team is shooting like that and they don't miss, there is always that shell shock when they come back down to earth, and it's not so much that they're, even if they go from shooting 100 to shooting just 50%, they fall off. The other team typically will come back and make it a game. That didn't happen against Utah. They
Yeah.
dominated that game. Grant Williams comes in, gets 3 fouls. Tice comes right in and balls out. I mean, the
Dominates.
Celtics
You saw
have
his block, right? His block
Oh
again. Who
yeah,
was
I
it?
watched the whole game
Clarkson.
yesterday.
So sick. So sick.
Scal with a nice Seinfeld reference. Very well done by Scal. Not something we say a
What
lot,
was
but
it? Did I miss it?
no soup for you. The soup Nazi.
Ah,
Tice
yes.
German. Yes. I appreciate that. But he was really great. He got a standing ovation, which I enjoyed from the fans. I love when the fans give props to the players. I don't think you get that everywhere, but it's like they recognize when you're doing a good job. Like, for example, I went to the Mavericks game, and there was a possession where Rob denied Luka the ball the whole possession, and people were like pumped. Like they were like giving him like a hand. Like that was awesome. So
yeah.
go ahead,
Speaking
Jack.
of Scal, I was just gonna say, Scal put it best. They're just embarrassing teams. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They're embarrassing the entire NBA right now. They dominated the Jazz. Like, when's the last time the Celtics had a close game? It was probably the Mavs, right? When they lost.
Yeah, when they lost.
Outside of that,
that is like, no, let's not act like they haven't won close games during this stretch. You know, they beat Brooklyn. That was an awesome win, right?
So close. That was a great game.
They have won close games since getting hot. Let's not act like they can't do that. Like that was one of the first things I remember being like, you know, like I think it was Chicago they beat. In Chicago, they didn't even have everybody playing. They still had DeRozan, but like Caruso was out, obviously. Lonzo was down. There was a bunch of guys that were not playing. And I was like, yeah, but like that is a game they would never win. Like they finished the game on an 8-0 run. That was something that was like a little bit of an eye opener to me. I was like, oh boy, like, you know, that's a real win. They beat Charlotte in a couple close games at the Garden, or they won one close game at the Garden. They lost the other one, but the second one they won was close. Like they have figured out how not to crap themselves in the fourth quarter. And the stats, shout out Jack, will tell you that their net rating in the fourth quarter is what, like 13.2 positive, something around there. It's like ridiculous. First in the NBA, I think, in the fourth quarter. Tatum has. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you finish.
Tatum has like picked it up to another level. They just put Pritchard in there, and he shoots a bunch of threes in the fourth quarter, and they seem to all go in now. It's fantastic. I'm very happy for Pritchard just because he really had a good season last season. People were impressed by him, and he was kind of relegated to what he called a red shirt year behind Schroeder when he was here. And now he's got an opportunity. He's picked up right where he left off, and that's great to see.
Yeah, the Celtics have only played 5 clutch games since the start of February. They're 3-2 in those games. I believe it's the Mavericks and probably the Pistons game.
Yeah.
But other than that, 3 wins. I think that's Brooklyn, the other Pistons game maybe, and then I think the Hawks maybe. Was the Hawks within 5 at the end, close to the end there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or the Nuggets. It might have been the other Nuggets game where the Celtics.
It might have been the other Nuggets game. It was that. That was.
But regardless,
very
is what
impressive.
I'm saying. They haven't had to be in clutch games. Like, I understand that's a very specific element of the game, but they just haven't had to do that because they're dominating from the jump. And then the fourth quarter, their net rating is like 0.2, but that's only because half the quarter they're playing their bench warmers, right? Because they're not playing their real team.
That's what their net rating is 0.2
in the fourth quarter. Since that might be on the season. Let me look. On the season, their net rating is 0.2 in the fourth quarter, but that's the whole season since the start.
Well, they crap themselves in the fourth quarter for after
exactly.
Season,
do you want start of the new year, or do you want since February? Those are the two.
Do since like January 6th, since the Knicks thing, since they lost.
January 6th. Okay,
I believe that was like a date that was thrown around.
Since January 6th, they have the 4th best fourth quarter net rating.
Try the 7th. I don't know which day the Knicks game was on.
Yeah,
if you start after that, it's probably
since the 7th. Since the 7th, it jumps to 10.3 since then.
There you go.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that was the day.
Which is 3rd best in the NBA. Their defensive rating is 3rd best in the NBA, and their offensive rating is 7th best in the NBA. That's the sneaky thing. And I'll pivot here a little bit. We talk a lot about the Celtics defense and how it's been the catalyst, which it has. It's been phenomenal. It's the best in the NBA. They're the best defense in the league right now. Their offense during the stretch has been amazing. It's been so good. And you can say, oh, that's just because Jason Tatum is popping off. Yes, correct. But the reason he's been able to do this is because not only has he adapted to be a better passer, The entire team gets Tatum in his spots to succeed, and then they do what they need to do when Tatum doesn't have the ball in his hands. Horford's making shots. Smart is making shots. Brown looked improved the past few games. He's getting to his spots when he needs to. Grant Williams is hitting shots. Grant Williams is cutting. Grant Williams is passing. Grant Williams is such an underrated focal point of this offense, even when he's not in the corner now. It's huge. Robert Williams can pass the ball. Derek Williams can drive and pass the ball. Every single player in the Celtics 7-man rotation can pass. 8-man rotation if you want to include Pritchard because he's making all shots. Every single player in that 7-man rotation can pass, can cut, can shoot outside of Rob, and can do everything on the offensive side of the floor. Not only that, but it complements Tatum so well that the Celtics offense has been phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, going back to Grant, he has used how well he shot the 3 this season to his advantage. Now he's taking advantage of how strictly the defense has to play him, and he's getting himself to the basket. He's driving closeouts. This is things that we haven't seen him do on the Celtics yet. Like, he's improving mid-season. That's great. Pritchard, another guy, mid-season improving. And I mean, he was great going into the season. I just remember talking about it on the podcast before the season. Like, in the preseason, he and Nesmith balled out. Like, they were great. Obviously, in the summer league, Pritchard balled out. We knew that they were capable. Nesmith has not shown it yet, but that is what it is. I mean, I still feel like he might be all right if he's given a consistent opportunity. Because, like, you can say the same thing for Pritchard. Before he was getting consistent minutes, he really wasn't doing much. But now that he is, he's really picked it up. And he's become a reliable three-point shooter. He's made, I think, 17 of his last 24 from what I saw on Twitter. Like, he is knocked down. You can rely on him. He can create his own shot from 3. And he really isn't even that much of a weak spot on defense. He's not elite or anything, but he grinds enough to where he's not getting picked on. He's not going to be a chink in the armor for the defense. And besides him, there really is no weak spot. Everybody is firing it on all cylinders on defense, including Tatum, who has picked up everything in the second half of the season. And he's a huge reason, not only that they're winning more games, but for that fourth quarter net rating. There was a lot of times early in the season that we were in these pods saying, what the hell's going on in the fourth quarter? Why can't somebody figure it out and put the ball in the basket? Because it wasn't even really their defense that was killing them. Well, there were some, like the Chicago game, they shot like almost perfect in the fourth quarter. But the Celtics couldn't buy a basket in the fourth quarter a lot of the times. Now they've figured it out. Going back to that Nets game, that is like win of the year. You beat a Nets team with Kevin Durant firing on all cylinders that day. They had Kyrie playing. Like, they looked good. That's the team you're going to see in the playoffs if, you draw them and you beat them. Not only did you beat them in a close game, and you made baskets down the stretch. You didn't just scrape by getting lucky that they didn't score. You put that game away. The only game since then that you can really point to say, wow, they didn't execute in the fourth quarter was the Mavericks game, which they lost. But that was just an off day. It really was. And it was an anomaly. The Kevin Garnett day was that day. Obviously, everybody kind of around the team was kind of hopped up that day. Those guys probably had a little bit of nerves. I mean,
and as much as it was an off day, they only lost by 3 points. And an off day plus Luka Doncic on the other side of the floor. Like, I mean, that's what it is. And obviously that's not an excuse. They're going to have to pick it up in the playoffs, but I take that with a grain of salt. That was a good team. Also, I apologize if I sound stuffy. I can't breathe out of my nose right now. I have allergies.
It happens. You know what you got to do is you put those vitamin C tablets in your waters.
No shot.
I don't even drink them that much, really. I just kind of drink a lot of water, and I do all right. But
I'm gonna need to drink some more water. But anyways, what else I was gonna say? Celtics net rating in general since that January 7th game you were talking about is first in the NBA, and it's not close. They're at 13.7 for a net rating. The Suns are second at 9.2, and after that, it drops down to the Timberwolves at 7.1. The Celtics are in first and have almost double the net rating of the third best net rating. It's like they're dominating. They're the best offense by over 4 defensive rating points, and they're the fourth best offense in that time span behind only the Timberwolves, Suns, and Nuggets. They're the best team in basketball and it's not close. And if you
Yeah.
had told me this a month ago, I would have thought you're crazy.
That them losing or
Yeah,
not losing, they're 3-2 in clutch games, which they would have been 0-5 in, like November,
yeah,
is the only thing. And that's not their fault. They're not in a lot of clutch games. I mean, you can win a championship if you blow everybody out every night in the playoffs. It
yes,
just
you
typically
can.
doesn't happen that way. I'm sure they'll be prepared when the time comes for that. But I mean, keep steamrolling teams. We don't care. We just sit here and watch. I lose $5 just to ensure myself a good. And I'm so addicted to them winning now to where,
You
like,
got to
if they,
stop making the bet.
I don't care. It's only $5. It's worth it. If they lose, like, it's really worth it because the odds are so skewed now. Like, if they lost yesterday, I would have made $125 off of 5. And I'm so addicted to the winning now that I feel like I will be crushed with a loss.
Yeah,
I'm just addicted. It's like,
I know.
this is like a cross sport reference for those of you
It'll
that will get it.
be. Go
Liverpool,
ahead.
they like never lose. They're competing for the title in the Premier League this year. They're like 1 point behind Manchester City. It's unreal. Like
Brentford
they
fell
just
off 'em
don't
'cause
lose. They don't
Brentford
lose.
fell
Like these teams don't lose. Neither the Celtics. Like I get the same high that I get from watching Liverpool now, knowing they should win every single game, that I do watching the Celtics. And that's not something I can say that we've really felt as fans in a very long time.
Yeah, and it's better because it's a crushing loss when they lose, but it's not an angry loss. Like, you're just upset. You're like, damn, they should have had it. It's not like I'm not mad at them when they lose
No,
anymore,
I mean
which
you
is
can lose
crazy.
every once in a while now. Now under the circumstances where we can get into this in a minute,
Yeah,
you're competing for the top seed, which is a very real possibility now. Even though, like, it's probably less real than everybody thinks, because it's not like it's just the Celtics that are 1 game or 1.5 games behind Miami. Like, it's 3 different teams. So not only are you
yes,
trying to
yes,
catch Miami, but you also have to be better than those other teams. Like, there's a
which
lot
is
more that goes
possible.
into it, which
Which
is
is
very
possible.
possible. But you could realistically get the first seed. So now if your goal is that, which not every fan's goal may be that for, the matchup reasons. But if it is, every loss is going to hurt. You're like, damn. Like, I was mad yesterday because Brooklyn lost, but Charlotte and Atlanta both lost. Like, those 2 teams missed a huge opportunity to get closer to the Nets because they lost. Not only did they lose, they lost to bum teams. Charlotte lost to the Knicks or the Pistons, and then Atlanta lost to the Knicks. Or those were the 4 teams involved, I promise you.
Hornets got a big game coming up.
They play the Nets.
Week,
they
do.
play the Nets on Sunday, and they are going to get the absolute crap kicked out of them because that is the first day where Kyrie's going to play there, and they're going to have a big, celebration. He'll probably get a standing ovation when he comes on. I mean, you name it, they're going to serenade that guy.
I will say, though, I'd kind of rather the Nets stay at 8, because if the Celtics are fighting for 1, right, which they have a chance at, the Nets are probably going to beat the Raptors, I would argue, even if it's in Toronto. I don't care. I don't care.
I think if it's in Toronto, you have more of an unknown. It's more of a variable.
Which it will be in Toronto. Yes. However, big game tonight between the Cavs and the Raptors, Sam.
Yes.
So
me personally, I want the Cavs to win.
I do.
I want the Cavs out of the play-in. Why? Because if the Celtics end up 3rd, they play the Cavs.
See, but I don't think the Celtics will end up 3rd. I think they'll end up 1 or 2 at this point. I'm very sad.
Even then, I don't think Cavs are going to beat Brooklyn.
And I don't either. But if the Celtics get 1
into this.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
if the Celtics get 1,
it just depends.
Cavs,
you don't know.
I
don't know where Brooklyn's going to be. And there's a lot of people out there that says we shouldn't even care about this, and I'm not sure how much. The only reason I care about it is less that I don't think the Celtics can beat Brooklyn. I just don't think you want to start off a playoff run in a grueling series and then play in a tough Eastern Conference where there's a lot of other good teams.
But I will say I agree with the sentiment that just win. Like, don't just win games.
Yeah, I'm on that train now as well.
And I don't think the Celtics have the mentality of, okay, let's drop this game so we can fall in seeding. Because based on the way they're playing, they're just blowing teams out.
The Celtics are playing golf right now. They're playing golf. And what I mean by that is they're just competing with themselves. They are going out every night and they are seeing how they can improve, how they can set a new course record. Like, they want to I'd imagine the goal every game is to hold the team that they play against to the least amount of points possible, which is why Pritchard was, clamping up Jordan Clarkson up 25 with like no time left. And then seeing how many you can score. Like, this has become a game inside the game to the Celtics. At least I feel like, and as a fan watching, that has become the game to me. I'm like, all right, like the OKC game, like, yeah, sure, they won, but they really didn't have, it wasn't that great of a win, right? Like, you should have held them to less than 100 or whatever. Like, in a week, I won't care, but like watching the game, you're like, oh, okay, like if I'm Ime Udoka, I have things to improve on, which is good. You always want them to improve. That's how you win. But they are playing golf. They are competing with themselves and seeing how they can improve every game.
Yes, I agree with you. And like I said, and like what you're getting at, just win games, right? Like the higher seed you get, the better. Especially considering the higher seed you get, the longer you get home court, right? And you're not going to get home court in the finals if it's the Suns. And this is obviously thinking way ahead here, but
is it
if
though?
It's anybody else, you have a chance to get home court. Like, how far back are the Celtics? That far back of the Grizzlies and the Warriors? Yeah, I guess they kind of are. They kind of are, but. Regardless,
if you're in the finals, though, does it go by record or does it go by what seed you are, unless you're the same
record?
Seed? Is it the record? I don't know.
I would assume so. I don't know.
I don't know.
Regardless.
If it's a 1 seed against a 2 seed, I don't know if they give it to the 2 seed. I don't know how it works.
Regardless, like, just win. Just win basketball games. They've got, 9 games left? They could
8
games left. Sorry. They could theoretically get up to, what is it now? 54 and 28 if they win out. I would say they'll probably go like 52 and 30. Just to be generous, I think they could win out, but just to be generous, just to be like,
I have started pounding the Kool-Aid. They will be 54 and 28.
I believe you. But if they're 5-3 and 6-2, they've got some tough games up.
5-3 would be tough. Just thinking about it, like
I know
how like dominant they've been, and then
I know.
If they all of a sudden go 5-3, people are going to be like,
I don't think they'll go 5-3. I think 6-2.
They're starting to lose games now. What's going on? What should we think? We won't be sitting down to do a show next week and then be like, oh wow, we have nothing to talk about. That's for sure.
I think 6-2 or 7-1 is a more realistic expectation. I think 8-0 is definitely in the cards. I think 5-3 is probably the worst case scenario, which is a pretty good worst case scenario, I will say, considering
it is, but it's not like it is in terms of. I mean, you'll still get however 50 wins. What are they? 45 wins now, so they would get 50 with
46.
That? 46. So they would get 51 wins with that, which is good. And it's fantastic looking where they were. But knowing that they lose 3 games when they are in a race for seeding, that's the tough part. And it's funny, if you pull up the standings, which I have frequently been doing, which makes just opening the apps more interesting every day, because I care who's winning games that the Celtics aren't in, which is not something that typically happens for me. You'll see the last 10 thing has become my favorite when looking at the standings, because you can really see the progress they're making on these other teams. So over the last 10 games, the Celtics have gained 3 games on Miami. Over the last 10 games, they've gained 3 games on Philly. Over the last 10 games, they've only gained 1 spot on Milwaukee.
Milwaukee's been rolling too.
8-2.
Yep.
So really right now, it looks like they're competing with Milwaukee. And then the other teams have been garbage. They have been like Bulls. Chicago 3-7, Cleveland 5-5, Toronto.
The Raptors have been better, but
Brooklyn 6-4, Charlotte 7-3, Atlanta 5-5.
Yep.
I mean, besides that, you're not seeing too much. Like the last 10 is my measuring stick to just how much better they've been than other teams is the best way to phrase it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. It makes sense, and like I said, I think they have a real chance to move up to that 1 or 2 seed, but I guess we'll see.
I love that. I have got on the Kool-Aid train there where I want the 1 seed. I like the idea of the Celtics being home court throughout the Eastern Conference playoffs. I think the Garden's a good place for them to play, even though 2 of their 3 losses in the last 2 months have been there rather than the road.
Yeah.
It's a good place for them to play. The atmosphere is great. Obviously, people in there right now are very excited about the team. It's a completely different environment than it was in December and October. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's fun to watch again. They're fun to watch again.
This is the most excited I have been about a Celtics team for a long period of time, probably since they were going to the finals. But like in a bottle, the most excited I've been since the bubble. Is because there was before the OG shot. I mean, you really could have thought they were going to win. Like they were doing what they're doing right now, but to teams in playoff series. Like they blew out Philly like every game. They blew out Toronto both games of the second round, and then they should have won game 3, and then they would have probably easily moved on, but instead they got into a dogfight. So just keep steamrolling teams.
I'm more excited
it's
about this team than the bubble team.
Oh, me too.
I'm more excited about this team than the bubble team.
I think, and we can get into our expectations momentarily. If you did not listen to the pregame, we gave you if you listened to the pregame, we gave you a little preview yesterday of how we feel. Yeah. But I mean, I am fully on the Kool-Aid. Like I think they can win. I think they can win a title. And I think for me not to be disappointed at this point, they have to make the Eastern Conference Finals. There are caveats to that. We did kind of touch on that yesterday. There are circumstances where you like kind of throw your hands up and go, whatever. Like it's like they got unlucky or whatever. But realistically, the way this team is playing, they should be able to get themselves at the very least the Eastern Conference Finals, barring catastrophe matchups, and potentially go to the finals and win.
I think they can win the finals.
Yeah.
I think they can legitimately win the NBA Finals. And the caveat you're talking about, I mentioned on the pregame show the other day, like Sam said, say they get matched up, worst case scenario, and I'm talking absolute worst case, they get 1 or 2, they end up playing Brooklyn. Brooklyn fights them for 7 games, which they probably will. If they play Brooklyn, it'll probably be a long series. And then game 7 comes around and Kevin Durant just drops like a 50 bomb, doesn't miss, can't do anything. Like he's on fire and he wins them the game. That's what Sam's saying. You throw your hands up like, well, shit, Brooklyn's that was ridiculous. Yes. Like that sucks. You'd be angry, but you wouldn't be angry at the Celtics. You know what I'm saying? You'd just be mad that happened to them. Barring that, second round is the bare minimum. Second round, I think, is the bare minimum. And once you get there, it starts to get a little more tricky because in theory, you'd almost certainly have to face one of Milwaukee, Miami, or Philadelphia. Sorry. Which I think the Celtics still could beat any of those teams in a 7-game series. And that's where Sam's thing comes into play of, bare minimum Eastern Conference Finals, because then you'd probably have to play one of those 3 teams again. But for me, second round should be the expectation. First round, you need to win the first round series, barring that one very niche thing. Like I said,
you need to win.
It's not just Kevin Durant. If it's like, actually, yeah, it is just.
Kevin Durant. There's no other circumstance where you should lose in the first round. The way the standings are set up right now, the amount of games that people would have to drop to really move down to where the Celtics would play like a Milwaukee or a Philly in the first
Unless
round.
We're talking, the only other thing that I would consider somewhat acceptable is say DeMar DeRozan drops like 50 a game, and they play good defense, it couldn't happen. It's very different than KD, but like I said, there's like a 2% chance. But say DeMar DeRozan just decides he's Michael Jordan, Celtics play great defense. That's the only other somewhat like close thing, because you're not going to play Embiid.
You can. Chicago is like not even being. First of all, Chicago's garbage against top teams.
I know.
We talked about this yesterday.
The Celtics shouldn't lose to Chicago, but
they shouldn't lose to Chicago. It would be but then if we're saying shouldn't, it's unacceptable.
I'm just saying there's no other player in the first round series that has the capability of winning their team's playoff games. DeRozan is the only other one that's borderline, and I don't think he can do it. Do you know what I'm saying, though? Just with the way he's playing this season, he's the only player.
If you get beat in the playoffs by DeMar DeRozan right now, not 3 months ago, right now, it's unacceptable.
I know. I understand. I'm just saying. I was just talking in terms of players that can win their team's playoff series, as in the Raptors don't have that, as in the Cavs don't have that, as in the that's it. As in the Raptors and Cavs don't have it.
Level of teams do not have that. Yes,
exactly.
The lower seeds do not have that.
I don't think the Bulls have that either. But I'm just saying DeRozan I would consider on the borderline just because of the season he's been having. But yes, outside of Brooklyn, there's no team you should lose to in the first round.
Right.
Second round is where things start to get tricky, because the Celtics could potentially lose to Miami, Milwaukee, or Philadelphia.
I don't think they're losing to Miami. I'm starting to get even more confident on that after yesterday. Yes. And they Miami, I mean, you can say what you want about yesterday. Teams get into arguments or whatever, but they lost to Golden State, who didn't have anyone playing, and then
they lost to Philly before
they lost to Philly, who had no one playing for them except Maxey. So those are 2 games where Miami dropped to teams that aren't even at full strength with the playoffs approaching. And they got in a big public argument. It took them a long time to get anyone to the podium after the game yesterday.
Yep.
I mean, you want to talk about dysfunction. Looks like we got some.
They look like the early season Celtics.
They look like the 2019 Celtics.
Yes.
To me.
It's a
good comparison. There's a lot of players on the team that are very good. Jimmy, Kyle Lowry, Bam, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. There are a lot of one of the Morris twins still on the team, right?
Markieff, yeah.
Yes, he's on the team. Oladipo's on the team. They are a deep team with a lot of guys that have, throughout their careers, played larger roles than they currently have. There is a lot to that where they could implode.
I will say it's a one-time incident. We haven't seen this at all from the Heat yet, so it could be nothing. And Spoelstra after the game said, "Yeah, we just disagreed." Blah blah blah. He said he made a joke.
He was very funny.
They asked him about it. He was like, "Yeah, we were asking each other where we wanted to go for dinner, and we disagreed." And he was being sarcastic, but I don't know, man. Two bad, voice crack. Holy shit! 2 bad losses for the Miami Heat in a row. They're dropping games, and it's not just the Celtics catching them, like you said. It's the Sixers catching them, and it's the Bucks catching them. They're in real danger of falling out of that 1 seed, which maybe they'd prefer, so they don't have to play Brooklyn. But I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well,
scary times.
Another thing about Miami is, I've said this time and time again, the Celtics, in the one game that both teams were healthy, blew them out. That was at Miami. And then they blew them out the other game, but Miami didn't have anyone playing. Miami will be in town next Wednesday at the Garden. We'll all get to see another look at that. And after that, I think we can all make more of a judgment. I'm hesitant to make a judgment really off of one game, but it's what we have right now to look at. So this season, they have had their way with Miami.
Yes.
They've also had their way with Milwaukee for the last 2 years, which I keep saying.
And outside of that one game, they've played pretty well against Philadelphia too. I'm just
but I keep saying that too. We don't know yet. We don't know. They have a different team now. They have a different way they do things. But yes, they are 2-2 against the Sixers this year. One of the losses came with Cantor guarding Embiid for the entire game, and the Celtics had to choke that game for Philly to win. It was not a real game where it was back and forth. It was Celtics were up in the fourth quarter. Danny Green got an offensive rebound, which turned into a 3, and then they couldn't score for the rest of the game, and then they lost, which doesn't happen anymore. They are pretty good at scoring, and I'm not even sure any of these other teams, besides really Miami, are even that great defensively. Yeah, I don't even know how good Miami is, but I think
Miami's
defense is typically their calling card.
Miami is a top 5 defense.
But Philly is not a defensive juggernaut. Milwaukee has fallen off this year defensively. Chicago is not. Lonzo Ball's been out, which hurts them. I mean, Brooklyn is not a defensive juggernaut. Well, Jared Allen's out for them.
They're still up there, but yeah. The Celtics are the best defense in the East by far. The next best defensive teams are all out west: Phoenix, Golden State, Dallas. But
I truly feel like 2 things win you playoff series. It's good defense, and it's superstars that will get you over the finish line.
You see my TikTok? Because that's what I said in my TikTok.
Did you say that?
I did.
No,
I'll play it for you. Verbatim. Hold up. I'll play it. For those listening, I'll promote it. I'm on TikTok now, making some content. Jack Simone NBA.
Jack's whoring himself out over there.
Hey, man. We've got views. We got 200K views on the first TikTok about Herb Jones. I wrote to win an NBA championship. All right, what do I... Let's turn our attention to the Boston Celtics. Top 3 team in the NBA to stand out. Great defense and star players.
Yep, there you go. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
I mean, we're verbatim in agreement.
And I listed it in the TikTok. I listed it in the TikTok.
Far and away the best defense in the league. And Tatum's playing out of his mind. Jaylen Brown's, again, coming back. I mean, he's been great lately. He had a hiccup there, but he's been great. Marcus Smart has been great. Rob Williams has been great. Al Horford has been great without having to do a lot statistically, but he's blocking shots. He's making big shots, I think. The bench, Grant, Pritchard, Derek White. Derek White has found his footing a bit over the last week after really struggling from deep. Made a couple yesterday against Utah. I mean, and Tice has been great. They have a very deep rotation, especially inside, which is good if you play Embiid because you're going to have to throw bodies at him. So you can trust Tice to play defense. You can trust Grant Williams to play defense. You trust Al Horford to play defense. Trust Rob to play defense. Those guys to different extents, of course. I mean, I don't want Tice trying his best the whole game, but if you have to put him in the game, it's not going to hurt you. It's not putting Cantor in the game.
Exactly, and that's the key. And you look at the past 3 champions. The Bucks were a top 10 defense. They had Giannis. The Lakers were a top 3 defense. They had LeBron. The Raptors were a top 5 defense. They had Kawhi. It's a pattern, right? You see a clear pattern.
Yep.
Bad defenses don't win championships. You can win a championship with a bad offense. Lakers were like 16th in offense their championship season, but they had LeBron James and a good defense. And the Celtics aren't a great offense, but they're still climbing up towards the top 10 for the season, I believe. And they have the best defense in the league with a superstar player getting hot at the playoffs. Like, where are the Celtics in terms of offensive rating on the season? Because at the start of the year, they were bottom 5, right? And now they're sitting at 11th. They're the 11th best offense in the NBA this season.
Yeah, that's for the whole season, and they were bad for the first half. And not only is that, but they have, the second biggest point differential per game or net rating for the whole season? Like,
on the season?
Phoenix?
Their net rating on the season is second, to Phoenix.
Yeah. And that's with them being garbage for the first half.
It's crazy. And to put that into perspective, for the first half of the season, from October 1st to December 31st, the Celtics offense was, let's see, where does it rank? Oh, shit, I didn't hit refresh. I was like, what? That can't be right. Or maybe, it's because I'm looking at net rating. Yeah, the Celtics offense for the first half of the season was 20th.
Yeah, it's
and
bad.
They've climbed all the way up towards the top 10. So, I mean, big difference here. The Celtics are a good offense now, and the best defense. And I mean, is there any team in the championship? We'll just talk about it. We've talked about East matchups. Is there any team from the West that scares you more than the rest?
That's hard because the sample size is less. Like, I don't know. For some reason, I'm not afraid of Phoenix, but I don't see Phoenix a lot. You know what I mean? Like, Phoenix is a very good team. They have good pieces: Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Eaton. Who?
Please don't give me Dallas. I just don't want to see.
Oh, agree. Yeah, I have no interest in that. You're absolutely right.
It's probably unlikely. I think the Mavs could get there with
Dallas
Luka,
might end up in the play-in.
Are you on drugs?
Them or Denver? Which one is 6? Denver's 6? All right.
Yeah, Dallas could get the 4 seed. Dallas is tied with the Jazz for the 4 seed. They're climbing.
I made a mistake.
I was like, hello? No, yeah. Denver's a game.
Really, the praise was meant for Minnesota, who has been playing really well. Lost to Phoenix yesterday.
2-game losing streak for Minnesota, but they've been on fire lately for sure.
Let's hope they're cooled off coming to town Sunday. No interest in seeing them lose to Minnesota.
Good team though. I think it'll be a good game. Then again, I said that about the Jazz. I said the Jazz would be a good game too. So I don't really know.
If it is a good game, they better win. I would love to see a good game and have them win. That would be that's the only thing today talking about. We've been like, listen, like the sample size is not there to say they're dominant in clutch games because they're not. Like that's the one Achilles heel this team has. Even then, they still have a winning record in the 5 clutch games they've had to play over the last 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in one, give us some reassurance.
And at least one of those clutch games, both Rob and Smart were out.
The Pistons won, so you can make it 3-1 if you want. But it's still the Pistons. But regardless, Cade Cunningham got away with a travel in that game, and then Grant hit the game winner. But yeah, you are playing unreal basketball. And I don't even know, the clutch is the last 5 minutes, right? I don't know if there's a way to filter it, but I'm sure if you filtered games that were close going into the fourth quarter, their record would be much better, which is also part of winning. Like clutch to me is the whole fourth quarter. I know it's not statistically, that's not what they define it as, but there have been games that have been a brawl for the first 3 quarters. When they were in Charlotte, that game was a pain in the ass. The Celtics didn't even play well. And then Tatum came out and said, you know what, we're going to put an end to this. And they won by 20. To me is still impressive. That is to me a close game still for most of it. I mean, they were battling the whole game. They stayed in the game. They didn't fall behind. And when the time was right, they went out and won the game.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think it speaks to how far they've come because, like you said, they weren't even close on those games at the start of the season. So Yeah, man. I don't know what else there is to say. Like the Celtics are they're just killing teams.
They are.
It's a great thing, and
It's a shame. It's a shame Tatum couldn't put together a whole season because
because he'd be
he
MVP.
would be the MVP.
He would be.
Before the
It's
season, that's what I was saying. I was saying if you can bet on it, bet Tatum for MVP. And then for 3 months, I looked like an ass. And then the last 3 months, I've looked like genius. If he puts together a whole season and the team does well, he might be the MVP. And still, what would you say? Denver's 6?
Yeah.
If they fall in the play-in, it's probably going to be Embiid because he's done it the whole season. And I still don't think Tatum should be the MVP. I can't justify it just because do it the whole year. And Jack, this is a guy I was arguing with you that he shouldn't be an all-star.
Yeah, which was still crazy at the time. But yeah.
I get very opinionated. I do not have any listen, I die on my hills, man. If the team's not winning, I don't think you should be recognized for your unreal performance. Just like people are like having a circle jerk for LeBron, just like we're having for the Celtics today, because he's scoring all these points, but like they keep losing. He didn't play yesterday when they lost to Philly, of course. Why would he?
If LeBron James gets first team All NBA, I'll be pissed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your team's 10, 11 games under 500. If the Celtics were that, I wouldn't be praising Tatum. I'd be saying he shouldn't be getting recognized. They are bad. You might be saying, Sam,
sorry, I had to sneeze.
The rest of his team's bad. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Fine, score 30 points a game, but you're not winning. I don't care.
What I was gonna say is I don't think Tatum will get first team All NBA either, but not because he doesn't deserve it, but because I think there are players that are more deserving, and he'll get bumped to second team. Who? I think what'll end up happening.
Curious.
I'm gonna sneeze again. 1 sec.
All right, there he goes. Sneeze.
I'm dying, people. I'm sorry. I think they'll bump Embiid to a forward spot and put him at the first team. Because let's be honest, both of them deserve to be first team. I know he's not, but Jokic and Embiid both deserve.
Fair. That is fair, though. Okay, then who's
they
the
both
other
deserve
forward?
it? Giannis.
Forward. All right.
Which
they should be able to bump Tatum to a guard then.
I agree. Tatum should be first team, I think, but I think he'll get second. If he's not on any team, then it's rigged. Then something is wrong. But
he'll be on a team. And the guy is literally like setting the world on fire. He'll be on. I think
the better question is, does Rob get onto a defensive team?
If he doesn't, that's criminal. That's a joke if he doesn't get on.
I agree, but if he gets voted as a center, then there's arguments for Rudy over him, Bam over him, Embiid over him, which I disagree with.
By like 100.
I know, but Gobert's gonna get first team. That's how life works. Like that's just how.
No, Rob should absolutely be first team. Marcus Smart should be first team. They both should have a shout for the award.
Tatum should be second team.
Tatum. I mean, you could take your pick. Could be on either of the teams on the starting lineup. Jaylen Brown plays fine defense. Al Horford doesn't really get enough credit league wide, but he does great. He's been a huge piece of why this team has improved this year defensively.
I agree. Off the dome, I'll give you my teams. And again, this is like off the dome. I'm going to look at my old Defensive Player of the Year ladders that I put out. But let's see. NBA DPOY ladder 22. Did I put one out? God, hold up. I'm selling. Okay, yeah. So if I had to guess, I'd go Smart on first team with the guard is like it's up for grabs outside of Marcus Smart. Maybe like you put CP on there, but he's been hurt. Tybal would be a good bet. Tybal on first team would be great, or Drew Holiday even though Drew Holiday is having a bad year as well. But Smart on first team, probably with Tybal as the other guard, unless you want to count him as a forward. Is Tybal a forward?
I'd say he's a guard.
All right, so then I would go Marcus Smart, Matisse Tybal as the guards. I'd put Giannis. I think I know they're not a great team, and I don't think he should win the DPOY, but he's on an all defensive first team. He's been great. I think Giannis.
They have the same record as the Celtics. Like they have a better winning percentage than the Celtics. Isn't that funny? Oh, okay. Great defensive team. Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah, I meant that.
Yep,
and then I think it's a toss-up between Jaren Jackson Jr. and Mikal Bridges for the other forward spot, and whoever doesn't get it will get second team. And then I think Gobert will probably end up as the first team center. And then for guards on the second team, I mean, hell, guards is, I mean, chalk it up. Maybe you throw, shit, I don't know, man. Fucking Gary Trent Jr. could be on the second team because he's leading the league in steals. He's been filthy on that side of the ball. So you throw him there, and then you put, yeah, I don't know, Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry could make the second team all defense, or Drew Holiday, one of those three. We'll get the other to spot. And then you put the other of Mikal and Jaren Jackson. I think you throw Jason Tatum as well, or Draymond. I think Draymond has to be on a team. I know he's missed time, but I think he deserves to be on a team regardless. He's been that good.
Okay.
He deserves to be on a team. Or Evan Mobley, one of those guys.
That'd be something as a rookie if he made the first
filthy,
or even one of the defensive teams.
Even Herb Jones, he's been that good. And then I think Robert Williams deserves that second center spot. There's arguments for
Rob Williams should be on one of those teams. He should probably be on the first, but he won't be. Like from what you're saying, I kind of not agree with the
logic.
Results,
you agree with
I agree with the logic. Like they will, because they're just scrubs. The people that vote on this, like it's just the whole thing's a joke. The awards are a joke. It's not well defined. Everybody has different measurements, including us. Like you value guys differently than I do, and I put a lot of it into winning, which I think is important. I don't think you're one of the best players if your team's not winning. I'm sorry,
and that's valid. I just don't think there's any set rules, so they just kind of wing it, which is
they are not. There are no set rules.
But yeah, I mean, I don't. Oh, the last thing I did want to mention was UC Deuce smack Marcus Smart last night.
I like that. I thought that was great. Also, one thing before we go, the Coach of the Year thing.
Yes.
I'm starting to really think it should be Ime Udoka. I just think, and here's why. One, I'm biased. Two, the team, you can truly see the impact he has had on this team.
Yeah.
They were no good. They were not playing well, losing games, choking games, you name it. They were doing it negatively. And he's got them playing like a well-oiled machine. I mean, the in-season turnaround that he has been at the helm of as the coach, he deserves credit for. Just like now, I don't think it's correct that coaches get the blame when the team's bad, but when they are good and they have gone through a change mid-season and improved, I think
they deserve some credit
for that.
I agree.
I think that's kind of what coaching is.
I agree. And I think I've said this many times. I think it will be Monty Williams, and you can't really argue it.
They have the best record. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I won't have a fit. Now, if it's somebody like Malone there in Denver, something like that, where they're, near the play, I'm not saying that's a name that's been thrown around. I don't know what I'm talking about. No.
Can I Google it? Coach.
Jeez, I couldn't get the mute button.
Coach of the year. Coach of the year NBA betting odds. I wonder what it's looking at. If I had to guess, I'd say.
Is it on the Twin River app? Let's see. How well do we do here, Rhode Island?
The only person I think will piss you off is if JB Bickerstaff wins because they've fallen off.
My man, funny dude. No. Cleveland. Yeah, no. He should not win. You're absolutely right.
But I think he deserves to be. I think Bickerstaff deserves to be in consideration.
I agree.
Just because of where the Cavs were last year with a very similar roster.
He was also the coach last year, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, so right now, Monty Williams is one. He's the favorite by a lot, minus 1,000.
Yeah.
Eric Spoelstra is next, plus 700. Taylor Jenkins is third, plus 800. JB Bickerstaff, plus 1,000. Udoka is next up, plus 1,500. Then there's Billy Donovan, Steve Kerr, Doc Rivers, Michael Malone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think Chris
River
Finch
app is no good. No awards you can bet on. Only futures. Only winners.
Where is Celtics standing in terms of
let me
finals
check.
favorites?
Hold on, let me put this in real quick.
I also think Chris Finch deserves some more credit. I don't think he'll get close, but what Minnesota's done this year is really great too. So I think he should be further up on that list.
Let's have a look. Sorry.
No worries. I'm curious to see. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess right now. I would say that Celtics are probably 4th or 5th in terms of title odds right now. And I want to see where I'm at. If I had to guess, I think Suns would be number 1.
I believe they talked about this on the radio today. It goes Phoenix plus 350, Golden State plus 600, Brooklyn plus 550, Milwaukee plus 650, Philadelphia plus 750, Miami plus 1,000, Boston plus 1,400.
Okay. I understand.
So they said,
but
hey, everybody at the top of the East is better than the Celtics, is what they said. And Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They said Brooklyn's also better.
That's kind of crazy to me. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know, man. That's kind of wild.
I may have to put a wager on this, actually.
Send it.
All right, this is pissing me off every time. Can you hear this? Can you hear the thing like making the noise on my computer because my iPad's plugged in?
No, I can't. That's funny though.
Yeah, it makes like this dinging noise. It's like, hey, can we access your photos and videos?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then like 10 seconds later, it's asking me again. It's like, just double checking. Like, can we? And I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Classic.
I just put $20 on the Celtics.
There you go. How much would that pay out?
280.
There you go. Anyways, that's all I had for today. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get on out of here?
No, you guys should all be very happy. We got 50 minutes out of a show where Jack sat down and said, I don't know what we're going to talk about.
This is true. Also, in other news, Chris Paul is probable tonight. So
who are they playing?
They're playing Denver.
I don't
good game.
care.
Could be a good game. I'm just saying it's big for the playoffs.
The East is not involved. I don't care.
I'm just saying for the playoffs in general, Chris Paul being back is huge. And if the Celtics make it that far, that will also be huge. But
good for them.
Anything else? Like I said,
yes. Dwayne Wade was at the game yesterday, and on the broadcast they said they were cheering for him. So if you were there and you were clapping for Dwayne Wade, shame on you. You should have been booed. I was very upset. I wanted to tweet about it, but I was like, no one's gonna care that I'm yelling at a cloud. But you should not cheer for Dwayne Wade. No, you can't do that.
I like Dwayne Wade.
That is bad Celtics fan behavior.
I love Dwayne Wade.
I mean, you shouldn't like yell at him and like say mean things to him either, but you should boo him. You should just say, like they did to Isaiah Thomas at the KG thing, they should have given him the same treatment.
Nah, I like Dwayne Wade. Fan.
Yeah,
he's a cool guy.
His arm. There you go.
All right. That's all I got for today. That's all for us. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. Sorry, it's been a while since our last podcast. You got busy. Celtics were playing a bunch of games.
Tough week, man. Like there's just a bunch of games. We try and drop these when there's a break, so we don't drop it and then it's irrelevant. So
yeah,
here we are. You got 5 days to listen to us.
There you go.
You twiddle your thumbs in between games.
Yes, sir. But thank you guys for listening. I'll throw it over to Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for listening or watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you're likely on Bannertown or Guy Boston. Subscribe if you are. If you're on Guy Boston, you can catch us an assortment of Jack, me, KJ, or Tim doing the pre-games before every game, a half hour. We've gone on a little early lately just because we're all on the Kool-Aid so much, or we're having silly conversations that you guys should be a part of. We always appreciate the people that show up there, too. It's a lot of fun. If you're on a streaming service, follow us there. You can get the new podcasts every time, just in case Jack forgets to tweet them, which does happen. He's always very good about it, though. He does all the editing, so he deserves the credit. But yeah, you can follow Jack.
I'm trying, man. Come on.
Jack is very busy. You can catch all his work at Jackson1NBA on Twitter. If you want to see me complain, you can follow me at Sam Francis. That's it.
Tic-tac-toe. Come on.